Hey everybody, Drew Bernalay here, Director of Student Ministries at Collin Prairie Community Church in Lenexa, Kansas. I hope you've all had a good week, have enjoyed the weather, have enjoyed the time outside. As you started school, I hope you're really just jumping into that and figuring that out, and I hope things start to become routine and get to the point where you need them to be. As you know, we've been talking about a series about stretching our faith, how we can do that, and just ways we can do that. Week one, when we started, we talked about commitment. We talked about how when we can make a commitment to Christ, we can truly stretch our faith because we dive in feet first and we give all that we have. Week two, we talked about how we can grow in our faith. We can stretch our faith by starting something new. We can take a moment, we can start reading our Bible on daily, we can start praying, we can start having weekly serve opportunities, just taking moments and starting something new. We can stretch our faith by doing that. Last week, we talked about how we can stretch our faith by letting something go. How sometimes there's things in our lives that are just holding us back that we don't necessarily see, we don't necessarily acknowledge, but the fact is they're there and that's what they're doing. But the truth is, when we let those things go, we can grow and we can stretch our faith. This week, we're going to look into how we can stretch our faith even when we fail. There's moments when we're not perfect, when we lose sight of who we are, we lose sight of what we're doing, and we just don't do good enough. We fail, and I think everybody does. Here's a question for you. Have you ever pulled a muscle? I certainly have, and it's not pleasant. I know a lot of times you pull a muscle because you forget to stretch, so it pulls the muscle because it's not warmed up. Do you know there's another way to pull a muscle though? That's by overstretching. When we overstretch, it makes those muscles too loose and easier to pull because they're too relaxed compared to where they should be, which is a little tense, so that way they're ready to pull and ready to go. Now the truth is, I don't know if anybody's ever done that. I don't think I've ever pulled one by overworking. But same can be said about our faith. Sometimes when we're seeking our faith and we're doing these new things, we end up failing. One, because we get in such a routine that we're not focusing, we're not doing what we're doing. And two, we do it because we're at the point where we stop because we think we're good, or we're just so used to it and we get tired of it. Now here's the fact. We push ourselves to a point of failure. That's how we get there a lot of times, especially when it comes to sports. We put so much weight and pressure on ourselves that sometimes we get bogged down, and we get to a point we're so afraid of failure and ashamed when it happens. But again, I want to talk to you about how even in failure we can stretch our faith. Now, as I said just a minute ago, everyone fails, and it's hard, it's rough, no one likes to fail. Two things come when we get to that point when we're worried about failing. One of those is we get to the point of we're so afraid to fail that it makes things worse, that adds pressure. The other one is we become ashamed of our faith. We become ashamed of it. But let's take a moment and let's change our aspects on failure, or change how we look at them. Now, if we look at our failures as something to fear or something to be ashamed of, it's hard to be able to want to grow. But let's say you look at your failures as a learning example, a way to get better, a way to improve. It makes things much better, and it helps you grow. Let's take a minute and look at some people in the Bible, because there's a lot of them that failed. And I'm sure you'll know most of them, or at least recognize most of the names from a lot of the stuff they did. The first one I want to talk about was Moses. You know what Moses did? Moses had the job of getting God's people out of Egypt. He succeeded. But here's a fact about Moses. Even though he was meant to lead, he was a terrible public speaker. No skill in it, was really bad at it. It was rough. Another one was Sarah. God came to Sarah at an old age and told her, "Hey, you're gonna have a baby," and she straight up laughed in God's face, which definitely is a moment of failure because God came back and said, "Here it is." Sarah became the mother that began the line of a big part of the line of Jesus. Next one is David, King David, as we know him. David used his power to take advantage of a woman and have her husband killed He did things that weren't the best, but the fact of it is he repented because God was able to use those moments to help him grow and realize where he was at, what he was doing. Another one was Peter, one of the disciples. Peter's known as a disciple who denied Jesus 3 times after he died on the cross. Peter also cut off a guard's ear when they came to get Jesus, which is pretty intense, but it happens, cutting off people's ears. But even though Peter did these things, Peter ended up becoming a huge part in the early church, helping change it and shape it. Here's the thing. All of these people I mentioned, Moses, Sarah, David, Peter, they all failed. Just like you and I do. They're human, they're people. But they took those failures and they learned and grew from them. They changed the way that they did things because God gave them an opportunity. They took their failures, they recognized them, and they turned them into learning moments. As you know, this whole series we've been talking about Paul and been talking about Romans and how Paul, was a leader in the church and helped people stretch their faith. So in Romans 2, Paul comes in and gives us 2 reasons for reasons why we fail. And I know there's many more reasons than this, but these are 2 big ones, and I think play a huge part in our faith and the roles we have. The first one of those is we fail to stop. We fail to stop doing the things we shouldn't be doing. We keep pushing, we keep doing them, we keep working through them. We keep doing those things. We don't stop what we're supposed to be doing. The second one is we fail to start. We fail to start doing something new. We fail to start growing, and we fail to pick up these new habits. As we've talked about the last few weeks, 2 of the things we can do is 1, let something go, and 2, start something new. These 2 reasons come to that. Now, as we said, we've talked about Paul. Paul also failed. Paul, during his time and his journey around the world and writing these letters, he had moments of weakness. Think about what he did before he became a Christian. He killed Christians. But Paul failed. But the fact is, in all of Paul's failures, he came to the moment where he realized that I can use this to do more. I can use this to grow. He took his failures and turned them into stories, letting us know of the things that he was struggling with, letting us know that we're not alone, which is an amazing fact and thing to have. Paul's a good guy, but he also failed. Paul's a huge leader and wrote a lot of the New Testament, but he failed on a daily. But he didn't let that failure come against him. He used it to grow and gain wisdom and knowledge and did what he needed to do. And here's the fact. When it comes to failure, we shouldn't fear it. We shouldn't be ashamed of it. Because truly when we fail, it gives us an opportunity to grow, to learn more, to get better. Failing's hard. I will admit that. It was for me too. I was definitely afraid of it for a long time. But when we can change that mindset to a point of realizing that when we fail, it's not the end. We change it to the mindset of, this is the learning experience. I can grow from this. When it comes to everyday life, but also in our faith, it helps us grow, helps us stretch that faith. So this week, I challenge you guys. I hope you have a great week first off. But I also challenge you guys, when it comes to moments of fearing or failure, remove that fear and sit there and look at it and be like, how can I grow if I fail? I hope you guys have a blessed week. It's been a good week for me, and I'm looking forward to next week as well. Have a blessed week. Praying for you guys.